This video is brought to you by Huel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have memory of doing it because once it did that, I was the one that pointed it out to you. Look at me cross my arms in the background and everything. You know, that's a regret. That's like one of those kind of petty, kind of like I'm trying to pop my friends in wrestling, but also obviously, you know, the petty part of that is wanting Taz to see it. And of course, Taz wasn't happy with me well before I crossed my arms in WCW, in some ways deservedly so. Now, back then, Taz really did take his craft, his brand, his character, and pro wrestling very seriously. Now, I took trying to have the best match I can and other things in the ring seriously, but it could be pretty much accused, you know, you can accuse me, rightfully so, of not taking a lot of other things seriously. My fitness, my health, my look. I was just a young guy that happened to not retain the calories or the fat or the buffets back in the day. I had a pretty good metabolism, but I didn't have a strict training regimen. I wasn't disciplined with that, and willpower and things that should have been instilled in me. Taz, in his own way, was trying to maybe instill some more discipline in me, where he'd always say, get bigger, brother, stuff like that, you know? But at the same time, Taz also took things so seriously that I don't think he enjoyed that time during his career. Me, I didn't enjoy certain things either, but also being the clueless putz, I also was trying to have a good time.
Okay, but hold your horses, Stevie. Before we get into why that's so important, I want to talk to you about my lunch, and more specifically, how I'm having lunch right now thanks to Huel. I'm on the Black Edition cookies and cream today, and the reason why I'm so happy to have Huel on board is because not only is it a product that both Stevie and I use in the past, we use it in the present as well. And here it is. Pow! Black Edition Huel powders. They are 400 calories for 2 servings. That's a super full serving. It takes less than a minute to make, which is great for frantic work days when I still want to eat well, and every single day with Stevie is a frantic work day, let me tell you. It tastes great, and I can have it during the show with nobody any the wiser. Until now.
So I have to say right off the bat to everybody here, I've never seen James so happy in my life. So Black Edition Huel definitely works, and Black Edition Huel flavors contain the right amount of carbs, proteins, essential fats, fibers, vitamins, and minerals, not only for a balanced diet, but also to help boost your energy. And my God, look at James. And also your immune system as well. So here's some Steiner math for you out there. Huel Black Edition powders work out at just under $3 per meal, and it has absolutely everything in it. And most importantly, it takes just 60 seconds to make. What more could you ask for? Click on the exclusive link, or we got a QR code right here to get 15% off your next meal, courtesy of the Huel's Black Edition range. 15% off your next Huel order, courtesy of the Stevie Richards Show, and this unique link, Huel.com/Stevie15. So in retrospect, looking back at it, and not so much now, but even after Taz and I had our discussions and became friendlier, I regretted that because it was petty, it wasn't right, and that was an era when, like I said with Kevin Nash, the NWO and the BWO parody, people were very protective of their intellectual property, whether it be a catchphrase, what they would say, color schemes like orange and black, fold in the arms, poses that are marketable poses for action figures, for 8x10s, for video games. So, you know, I got that after the fact. Nobody explained that to me. I had to kind of look at it years and years later and go, yeah, that's kind of dumb. But I was doing it as a 24, 25-year-old kid, just trying to pop the boys that I'm friendly with. And yeah, maybe a little bit petty to Taz. Yes, we absolutely, positively, that and a million other things squashed any sort of heat, squashed any sort of animosity. As a matter of fact, I talked about it before. I'm not sure if it was on an interview or a past episode or both. When I'm walking in the WWE at the time, Taz as a commentator, I believe, on SmackDown, I walk by his rental car and I see the light of like a mobile gaming device, a PS Vita or a PSP, I'm not quite sure. Taz is playing Madden in the rental car, like literally doing what I do. I used to escape to the skybox with my Dreamcast, my original Xbox, and play video games alone or with a couple people that would kind of keep it a secret. So I was like, oh my God, we're not that much different. And I remember us having a conversation. He's like, I see when you go up to the skybox and you're playing video games. And I'm like, time for me to go out to the rental car and play my video games. So that's been squashed. As a matter of fact, speaking of heat, there's a while back where, you know, I was reviewing the fitness products. I review infrared saunas and other recovery devices. Taz was asking me a lot of questions. And in my mind, although I didn't say it, I was like, you know, we used to have discussions about bad types of heat, and now we're having discussions about really good types of heat. Dad joke right there. So thought he would appreciate that. But we're good. I'm really happy to see Taz, and I'm really happy in a way when I watch Botchamania that people have the cardboard cutout of Taz. But I digress, and he's become a very entertaining meme. I don't know if he appreciates that, you know, but he seems to be having like the best time he can have in the past few years commentating and having him and Excalibur. I remember, was it Dark and Dark Elevation? The commentary was the most entertaining commentary on those because sometimes the matches were just like, what can you say about the matches? Nothing. So they would just rib each other, bury each other, say things, do whatever. Taz would sing Ruby Soho songs and stuff like that. Or the Jungle Boy song and thing, everything in Botchamania, pretty much.
Going back to the last line of Old Grey Beardo's question, it says, what Taz had to... It basically asks, what did Taz have to say about it? So when did he grip you? When did he sort of discuss the whole pose thing? Did he have your number? Did he call you? Or did he bump into you later and talk about it?
I would probably say, I'm not quite sure if he directly contacted me then. The conversation, I think, came up in WWE way, way down the line. And I believe I did say, man, I'm sorry. That was just petty and stupid and young stupidity. And that was it. You know what I mean? I don't even think he came to me with it or we had a quick discussion. It wasn't like, you know, I'm still offended by that or anything like that. You know, it was just a thing. But Taz, I have to say, like for everybody that said back then or may have goofed on him behind his back or maybe some people to him about taking all that so very seriously, you have to give him credit for it because I think I would rather have people take it more seriously in 2025 than what we see today where people don't protect their gimmick, their brand, the characters, the storylines, and what they have going on. And another thing about Taz is those t-shirt designs, like you said, man, Taz seemed to have a new t-shirt like every week or two. He designed those t-shirts. So he had outside talents that if you looked at it, and if I knew at the time, and if Taz knew a little bit more about me at the time, we would realize we had a lot more in common. And maybe Taz would have been somewhat of a mentor to me to say like, hey, dude, you got to grow up. You got to have some discipline. You got to do that. I wasn't the type of guy that could be coached hard back then because I was way too sensitive. But if you explain things to me, I'd be like, oh, I kind of get it now. Just personality stuff.
Yeah, when did Taz change personality-wise? Because I spoke to Taz. He seems, you know, he's jovial, happy-go-lucky pretty much, you know. And then I hear all these stories about him and ECW and, you know, very standoffish, always sitting in the corner, you know, maybe with Team Taz or whomever it might be.
He and Perry would be laying their heads at this table they set up on their Halliburtons like this, and you're almost afraid to go up to say hello to them, you know. And I know Perry disagrees with everything I say, but, you know, he would admit that's true. Very intimidating guys. You know, they're intimidating on their own, and then they're paired up together as dual enforcers in the locker room. And they're so tightly connected to that New York clique of Bubba, Taz, Dreamer, and then right along with that, Paulie's in the group. He's the boss, but he's also figured into the New York clique right there. So it's just personality stuff, but what makes the business so interesting that you had a personality like myself and a personality like Taz coexisting on the same TV show.
I was wondering if it was an ECW locker room thing or the kind of thing where, so we hear stories and you'll obviously be able to talk about it more than me, is Paul Heyman would get ideas in people's heads or, you know, I don't know, maybe get people paranoid about their spot or something like that, where people are maybe a bit oversensitive or overprotective in the locker room with other people. I mean, I'm spitballing ideas, but do you think that could be a reason why Taz was more standoffish back then than he is now?
I have no clue. I don't know. Dreamer and Paul, they knew him as the Tasmaniac and the previous gimmicks to when he finally found the gimmick that worked for him. So I don't know what he was like. They were the ones traveling to and from the Savaldis. They were working up there, I believe, up in the Northeast. So they all, Dreamer especially, they all kind of knew each other before this iteration of Taz. So I don't know. I think when he became a commentator in WWE, it wasn't by the way, I've said it before. WWE completely dropped the ball on Taz, probably worse than anybody I can think of. The Madison Square Garden debut against Kurt Angle, they heard that heartbeat, people exploded, and even Howard Finkel got excited and started announcing him and didn't lay out, and they had to cut it out of the, if you look back on the network, and Taz's pop right up there. And when I heard that, I was like, the knives are out. Even as naive I could be back then, I'm like, the knives are out for this dude, and that's what happened. And it's just like, the WWE just did him a disservice, and they left millions upon millions of dollars, not just for Taz, but for themselves, all on the table because of pettiness, and that's where I can agree. I can apologize for my temporary brief pettiness, but that company, man, they need to apologize to Taz because they had lightning in a bottle with that guy and they ruined it.
They didn't drop the ball on Taz. They picked up the ball, they stabbed it 100 times, and then they threw it off a cliff. Like they.
Oh yeah, it was intentional, 100% intentional.
It was so intentional. I mean, as soon as and I've said this before, they feuded him with basically the tallest people they could on the roster, and then and I hate to use the word, but they jobbed him out to Triple H. And Tommy Dreamer in the same match somehow as well, even though he didn't work for the company.
My guess would be that was somewhere in an ECW town or Philadelphia. If you're WWE, it was
I can find that out.
But you know what I mean? If you're making educated guesses, if you want the trifecta, bury the two top talents in the ECW like stronghold or somewhere where ECW was really popular.
Right, I'm going to find it right now. Triple H.
Yeah, they put him against
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Wouldn't you believe it?
Not today, CT. Aha.
Jeez. Unreal, isn't it?
See, these people aren't hard to figure out, right? You would think, well, it had to be Philly if you really want to go for it.
Okay, right. So let's go back to the initial arms folding thing in WCW. Were you specifically angry with Taz at the time? Or was there something that was bugging you about Taz at the time? Or were you just goofing?
I was just goofing, but I was kind of in a bad place emotionally. We talked about that during the interview, the WSI interview that I did. It was just immaturity, emotional decisions after emotional decisions after emotional decisions. And I'm injured to a point that I never have been. So you combine that immaturity with not knowing how to handle a neck injury in your 20s. And everything seems to be collapsing. And of course, once I got to WCW, I realized this maybe financially and maybe for the, and even after a few weeks I was wrestling. So I thought I was going to be able to heal the neck injury, which by the way, I was wrong. It wasn't going to heal it. Surgery was necessary from day one. It just went from one level to two levels. But then my personal standing within the business and the heat in the business and not knowing like I know now, heat always passes. I'm well past the point of these people that we're talking about with Taz and other people that, and then we created a brand new crop of people to have heat with now with the show. So maybe 10 years from now, we'll be best friends too. But yeah, I didn't have the perspective. That's the word I'm looking for to say, well, this is just kind of a blip on the radar and like 5 years from now, or we can talk it out, agree to disagree, and just kind of respectfully go our own ways. I wasn't ready for that for some reason. I go back to the point I made last week and probably next week for part 3. It's incredibly difficult in your 20s to carry the weight and the burden that these kids carry today, along with big money contracts, the immense amount of pressure. I give them all the credit in the world to do what they do. Although we try to tell them, like, listen, we want you to wrestle 30, 40, maybe 50 if you choose to. At this rate, you may not even reach 30, so save that money.
One more thing I wanted to ask you. Why did Taz and Raven never interact in ECW? To the best of my knowledge, anyway. They did in the WWF after the fact, 2001, I think. But I don't know if Raven and Taz were ever buddy-buddy or you saw them interacting, or were they just completely separate parts of the main event scene?
I don't think they were buddy-buddy. I know they mutually respected each other to an extent. I don't think they were friendly as far as... And you have to think, Raven also in ECW, big partier, went out, came into the shows late all the time, which Mania, myself, and Nova always paid for. And Taz, to his credit, was very much, if like college coaches or NFL coaches, if you're on time, you're 15 minutes late. That kind of thing. Discipline, structure, willpower, seriousness. And Raven, if you mix Taz and Raven together, you would have like the perfect person to teach you wrestling from all different points of everything. And Taz really had a different type of perspective on the business as far as making it a UFC style presentation with his gimmick. Raven was the dog and pony show, the storylines and stuff like that. Not to say Taz didn't have storylines and angles and personal issues like Sabu, and even when he has neck broken, had a personal issue with that for Scorpio. He had his mix of that, but I believe that Paul was the person that realized, why should I make these two separate and distinct universes clash? It just wouldn't line up. I don't think that if Taz and Raven had a match, that it would have the same as Taz within his wheelhouse and Raven within his wheelhouse. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Paulie probably kept them apart to keep two top stars there that he can interchange in the main event.